What up, everybody, and welcome to Baz on Blades. My name is Baz, and I talk about blades. Today's feature blade, as you can see in front of you, and by the title of the video, is the Kershaw Skyline XL. Now, this is a BladeHQ exclusive. The model number on this particular version is 1761. All right. You know what? I want to say before I go into this video, I am not a huge fan of the Kershaw Skyline design. There is some little niggly, itty-bitty aesthetic thing about it I just do not find attractive. But I have a subscriber and a viewer and a supporter, let me say. This man has been supportive of my channel. His name is Ed for short, and Ed lives outside of the United States. He is from Australia, and he tried to order this knife from BladeHQ, and although they ship to Australia, for some reason they could not ship Kershaw. So he contacted me to see if I would help him out. I was extremely happy to do that. Like I say, he's been very supportive of my channel. So I got this knife in. I'm going to do a quick review on it and ship it out to Ed. Ed, I hope you enjoy the review on your knife, brother. And again, I thank you for your support. Now, like I say, even though I'm not a personal fan of the looks, okay, of the Skyline, I'm going to be straight up with this review because there is a lot of people out there that really, really love the Skyline. And I see a lot of positive in this design. Now, this is a BladeHQ exclusive. It is the XL version in a 3.75 inch blade length, and I did not look to see what the regular version's blade length is, but I think it's around 3¼ inches. And then, of course, scale wise, it's going to be smaller than this version. Now, this is the XL version, is available in 4 different models. Let's say it's the same model, but it's 4 different versions of this model. You have a choice of either OD green or black G10 handles. And then between the 2 of them, each is available with a black wash finish on the blade or a stone wash. So there's your 4 different versions of it. As you can see here, we're in standard Kershaw packaging. You can see how it's marked right here, Skyline XL, 1761. Nothing really special there. The knife was in there in a clear plastic baggie. Then you have the fold-up information that comes with all Kershaw knives with their warranty information and care information and whatnot. I'm not going to dig it out because I'm sure everybody out there has got about 20 copies of that already from all the Kershaws they've bought. Let's knock out the specs real quick. This is a full-size version of this knife. Like I say, you're in a 3.75 inch blade length. That's about 9½ centimeters. Your blade stock thickness, 116 thousandths of an inch or 3 millimeters. Your blade width, 1.07 inches or 27.3 millimeters. Handle length, right at 5 inches or about 12½ centimeters. Handle thickness, 476 thousandths of an inch or 12.1 millimeters. Your handle width, at the widest, 1.15 inches or 29.2 millimeters, and that is here at the back side of the finger choil and not at the pivot where you would typically see the widest point of the handle. The closed width on this knife, the way that I measured it, was at the pivot, and I did include the very large flipper tab for this measurement, and that is 1.45 inches or 36.9 millimeters. Your overall length, 8.75 inches or 22 centimeters plus. Your stop pin, the stop pin on this, and I don't know if we can see this. If you can see down in there, maybe not. I'm trying to get it, guys. Well, the stop pin is captured in the handle. It is captured in the handle itself and not in the blade, so I cannot get to it without disassembling the knife, and it's not mine, so I'm not going to do that. But I sort of eyeballed it. I'm going to estimate the stop pin diameter to be around 110 thousandths of an inch, or 2.8 millimeters. Behind the edge on this knife, very impressive, guys. It is a thin edge knife with a nice high hollow grind. You're looking at about 19 thousandths of an inch, or 0.49 millimeters. The handle to blade ratio, a respectable 0.75, and your weight, an easy to carry 3.95 ounces, or 112 grams. All right, well, let's take care of the elephant in the room. We're going to talk about materials, and this is the one thing you see everybody talk about, and that is the difference between the XL version and the regular version of the Skyline. The normal version of the Skyline is an American-made product and does feature 14C27 Sandvik stainless for the blade steel. For whatever reason, when BladeHQ spec'd this exclusive XL version, they had it made in China and with a less premium steel. It is in HCR13 MOV, which we're all familiar with from Kershaw's Chinese knives. It is a medium carbon, sort of entry budget level range stainless out of China. You're 0.7 to 0.8% carbon, 13 to 14.5% chromium. It is a vanadium alloyed stainless with 0.1 to 0.25% vanadium. That gives you decent edge retention or wear resistance, good toughness or impact. This steel tends to roll rather than crack or chip, and good corrosion resistance. You would find it compared to your 440 series stainless. It falls right around the 440B range as far as the makeup of the steel, and also compared to AUS 8. I would say I would slightly prefer AUS 8 and 440C over HCR13 MOV. But the great thing about HCR13 MOV, it's really easy to sharpen. It will take a very sharp edge. I have sharpened HCR13 MOV to where it will whittle hair lengthwise. So you can get it extremely sharp, even though it's not going to hold that edge for a long time. It does tend to hold a working edge pretty decent, and then it's easy to resharpen. Now, as far as the handle materials, you are in black G10. This is a sort of a medium traction black G10. I would compare it to the G10 that Spyderco uses on the paramilitary too, and also that Cold Steel uses on the American Lawman model. Plenty enough traction with it, but it's not super coarse. It's not going to shred your pockets. The way this knife is made, it is a single stainless liner lock, and then the face side is an unlined G10 slab. You can see down in there, there's really no weight relief on that steel liner, and it you know, guys, at 3.95 ounces and 8.75 inches overall, it's still pretty doggone light. In addition to that handle build, you've got some black stainless standoffs back here. They're concave shaped standoffs. And then you have and I like this pocket clip from Kershaw. It's not pretty, but it's very utilitarian. It's short. On this particular model, it's finished in black. It is available. It comes from the factory in the tip down position, but you can also do it tip up. But it is a right hand only, guys. So lefties, so sorry. All right, so there is your materials. Now, the fit and finish on this, we'll go back up to the blade. The blade is a drop point, spear point sort of profile with a high hollow grind. It does have a short swedge. It is a pretty piercy profile. As you can see here, it readily catches and pierces with little to no pressure. And again, with this high hollow grind, you get a very thin edge, guys. This knife is going to be very slicey. I want you to pay particular attention to the sharpening choil here, and you can see they just about got it right. The sharpening choil really should come forward another millimeter, millimeter and a half, and that would get it totally away from the plunge grind, because this is a soft, wide plunge grind, and you do see a little bit of flare in here on the sharpened edge at the termination. But other than that, this knife, the blade, is very well done. This stone wash is very attractive, something that Kershaw typically does a great job on. You do have some moderately sized step-domed thumb studs here. They are ambidextrous, and they are well back and away from the cutting edge, so they should not interfere in cutting or resharpening. So no issues there. And I like the black against the stonewash silver of the blade. You know, the thumb studs are not fancy, but they do stand out, and that is sort of, you know, an aesthetic touch right there. That black hardware is reflected in the hardware on the handle, if I didn't say anything about that. As far as the fit and finish on the handle, all the machining is done well. No issues there. I can't find any issues with fit and finish in the handle. Everything's straight, everything's flush. There's nothing hanging out where it shouldn't be. You know, this is a $33 knife, and I find that the fit and finish is very much well in line with that. Overall, no fit and finish issues that I would even think about saying anything about, if I could find anything, guys. I mean, I just don't really see anything that's wrong with this knife. So kudos to Kershaw for that. And then that black finish on the hardware is well done, guys. It matches everywhere. So it has a nice, uniform, well done look to it. No issues in fit and finish anywhere on this knife. And one more thing as far as the blade goes, if you'll look at the spine of the blade, which is flat, there is no jimping on the spine of this blade. So for you guys that are jimping fanatics, keep in mind no jimping on this. All right, let's go to action. And I'm going to set this thing down for just a second while I talk about this. The action on this knife is, in my opinion, typical of nylon washer flipper folders in the Kershaw Chinese line. I will say it came out of the box extremely dry. Extremely dry. Now, it did not feel real dirty. It didn't feel excessively dirty from manufacturing grit or anything. It was just super dry and sort of had that hissy, real loud hissy sort of noise that bushings and washers do when they're dry. So I put a couple of drops of oil, one on each side of the pivot of this knife. And again, I'm not going to take this thing apart. It's not my knife, but it did come right around with a couple of drops of oil and a very slight tweak on the pivot tension. Now, that said, the knife now, it actually flips really well for a Skyline. No issues there. The detent does not feel like a super hard detent, but it is perfectly fine. It does store plenty of energy. The way the flipper tab geometry is on this, it likes sort of a radial push button sort of technique to open it, and with that technique, it's pretty good, guys. No issues. In fact, there's quite a few people out there that have reviewed Skyline models, and they were terrible flippers. So I'm very excited for Edward on this one. He did end up with a pretty doggone decent one. The only thing I will say is, if you can see here, the centering is not perfect. It is slightly off to the liner side, But that is something that I expect from Chinese-made Kershaws. I very seldom ever see a Chinese Kershaw with perfect centering, and especially one that's on washers. Now, the ones that are on the KVT, they tend to be a little bit better, but I'm not surprised when the centering's off on them either. But good for Edward and good for Kershaw on this. The centering is actually pretty decent, if not perfect. I think in combination with the great flipper action on this particular example, that this is a pretty decent example of the Skyline XL. The lockup on it, no issue there. I would not consider this to be a heavy-duty knife. There's no lock play. What I feel there is flex in the handle. And I'm going to pull another knife out here, what I'm carrying as an example to show you. And look at the difference in the thickness of the G10 on these two knives. Now, this is a Cold Steel Recon 1, which is a heavy-duty folder, and then you've got the Skyline. You can see the G10, the thickness on that G10 stock is much thinner on the Skyline. In combination with this just being a single liner, I think what I am feeling in the pivot is flex from the show side scale on this knife. And because when I move it side to side, I'm not feeling any bushing or washer play. I'm not feeling any lock play. What I'm feeling is flex along the length of the body. So there is a little flex here. That could have been a little bit thicker liner, or they could have used dual steel liners in it, which would have made it heavier, yes. But it would have made it a more heavy-duty knife. Especially taking into consideration you've stepped up to a much larger size over the standard Skyline, and people tend to equate size with durability and toughness in knives. They think, you know, the bigger it is, the tougher it should be, therefore I should use it harder, or it's capable of being used harder. I don't think that applies in this knife. I think it is still it is just an EDC knife that is on the larger size for those that like a larger size EDC knife. So as far as the action goes, I'm pleasantly surprised on this. I have seen, I'm going to give a big shout out to Birdshot 4, Bird and Frankie. They have the worst luck with Skylines. I don't even know why they buy. I think they're just cruising for a bruising is what they are. Every Skyline that they buy is a terrible flipper, but that is not the case in this XL model. It's actually a pretty doggone decent flipper. You can fail the flip on it, but you got to try to sort of fail the flip, and you can see it still. That's a fair amount of rotation on a purposefully failed flip. But as far as flipping it, no issue right there, guys. Pleasantly surprised there from what I've seen. Now, the good thing about the Skyline XL, as far as I'm concerned, now I personally prefer larger knives myself, and I think that the Skyline benefits in ergonomics from the larger size. I love, guys, this nice deep finger choil right here. I'm a big finger choil type of person, so I like that. The remainder of the handle is pretty wide open, guys. It's doesn't have a lot of detail or funky shape into it to confine you to certain grips. It feels great in a forward grip. In a reverse grip, it feels good. You've got plenty of handle here. If you needed to use it as an impact device, you could in either grip. So that works out. For a draw grip, I think the flipper tab is a little large and it does intrude into the webbing between the thumb and the first finger. I probably would not use it in that type of grip. And again, I don't find this to be a super heavy duty knife, so I'm not going to be hard using it anyway. As far as the utility use of the blade, we've got a pretty tried and true blade shape here in a drop point, spear point sort of hybrid, with a high hollow grind, a thin slicey edge, a pretty decent pointy pokey tip. And you know what, guys? I think that the blade design is pretty much a win. It's pretty utilitarian. Now, yeah, it is a fairly thin hollow grind, so you're not going to be out there beating on anything with it. But as I've already said, I really don't find this to be a heavy-duty use knife, but I think in an EDC role, with just your normal day-to-day use, it is going to be a great cutter with a comfortable and ergonomic handle. Some people may miss the jimping up here, but honestly, with this deep choil, a large flipper tab extension, and the good handle design, you know, the medium coarseness G10, I honestly, I don't miss it there at all, guys. You know, if it was there, it's there. If it's not, it's not, as far as I'm concerned. All right, so ergos win. Great blade design, good handle design, no issues there. Now, we're going to close this up before we get too awful long. Overall on this knife, as I've stated, we took a step down in blade material from the American-made Skyline to the Chinese-made Skyline XL. But I am on record as I'm okay with HCR 13 MOV in the sense that it is a budget stainless steel, and I know that going in. If I carry one of my many Kershaws that are in that blade steel, I already have formed a mindset as to how I will use that knife, you know, in comparison to the blade steel that it has. So not an issue there. And I think that this blade steel at a $33 price point with this decent of a build it's okay. It's okay. Yes, I would like to see a better blade steel in it, but it is what it is, guys, and I think that it's at an accessible and acceptable price point. As far as the action on this particular one, as I said, fantastic. I was pleasantly surprised by this, and you know, I think Edward got lucky on this one. From what I've seen out there, these Skylines can be a nightmare as far as the action goes, but this one, it really is. It's pretty doggone decent. And you know what? It should be, because it has a giant flipper tab. I believe you could probably take this flipper tab off and use it as a separate tool somewhere else. It's that dadgum big, and that may very well be what I don't like aesthetically about the Skyline. Is just that big, clunky, bulky. Not only is it big the way it sticks out, but it's wide, and it's just got so much bulk against this fairly streamlined design. That may be what I don't like about the look of the Skyline. But overall, from this one sample that I have here, Bazon Blades is going to say, yes, I can recommend this knife at the $33 price point. Am I going to buy one myself? No, I just don't like the looks of the Skyline, and I've got plenty other of Chinese Kershaws. But if you do like the looks of the Skyline, you wished you had a little bit bigger version rather than the standard version, and you are okay with HCR 13 MOV for your blade steel, I think that it's a pretty decent deal and a pretty decent design and build quality from Kershaw in their Chinese products. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody taking the time to watch this video. Thank you to Edward for letting me review this before I send it out to you. I hope you enjoy it, brother, and God bless all of you, and we will talk to you again.